I don't know how to introduce this gentleman here. This gentleman here, he's done it all. From being a lawyer to playing in the World Series of Poker to becoming a gambling expert to now using his platform to transition into motivation, inspiration, mental health awareness, like literally everything. So I don't even know how to introduce you, Sia, but welcome to the morning show, Sia.
Honestly, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. That probably was the best way to introduce me. I really appreciate all the accolades. It's been quite the transition over the last 7, 8, 9 years from, certain professions to professions. And now I'm here in the media space, obviously do a lot of gambling stuff, but like you said, do a lot of motivational type content. And I'm just really happy to do it. So you invited me on the show. Just I can talk about it more, or we can talk about sports, or I know you were talking about movies. I love chopping.
We do movies every day, and we save it for the end of the interviews. There's always I'll preview it. You can think about it as we're talking. Every guest has to answer Goodfellas versus Godfather. That's an every show, every guest question that we close with. So we'll get to that. I love you. And I don't mean this to kind of. It sounds like I'm like playing up to the guest and everything like that when I say things like this, but you're a very big inspiration to me because I'm trying. I'm in the early stages of where you were in this transition, into a different career. I own a restaurant. I'm a pizza shop guy. This is something that started as a hobby that's moving into more of a serious thing that I take very seriously. And I love to see that, some people would like kind of look down on changing goals in life as you go along. And you've talked a lot on your Sia Nejad Sports Network with your guests about like setting goals in life and how to find a way to actually get that goal accomplished. So when you're a lawyer and you're transitioning from that to something else, like at what point in your life did you realize I want to do more? I want to do something different. And how did you set yourself up for that?
Yeah, it's such a complicated question, even though it doesn't sound like one, because the truth is I'm always trying to do something different, even right now. I mean, what I mean by that, I don't mean professionally. I just mean like I'm always chasing doing more. I'm always trying to have more of an impact. But when it started, listen, I practiced law for 13 years. I was yes, it is a Santana Moss poster behind me. And you say why? And here's the reason. Because and this is very discreet. This is such a good observation from the chat, and I'll get to my answer in a second. He's holding up the 21 for Sean Taylor. And so that's really less a Santana Moss poster behind me, and it's more of a shout out to Sean Taylor, who I think is you guys are going to hate me for saying this. I think he's the best safety ever. I know Brian Dawkins is in that conversation, as is Ed Reed. But anyway, that's something we could talk about another day. Obviously, tragically passed in 2007. Yeah, when I was practicing law, I would say about 5 years into practicing law, I was uninterested in doing it the rest of my life. The problem for me was I didn't know what to do because, we all think we have certain skill sets and we're not exactly sure how to, jump out of a career or jump into a new career. Well, it turns out, real quick, long story short, a guy I used to play poker with, you mentioned the World Series of Poker main event, which I played in 2018. A guy I used to play poker with was a manager at a pharma company, and he kind of recruited me out of law. I actually did pharma sales at a dermatology company for like 3 or 4 years. And while I was doing that, I had time to break into the media. And so I just slowly had the wheels turning. And it turns out I was kind of doing both at the same time, pharma during the day, most of the media at night. And I got to a point where I was getting so much media stuff to do that I just decided, all right, here I am. I'm going to make the jump. And while I did that, Phil, I started the Sia Nejad sports thing because I realized I really like doing the sports media stuff. I like doing the sports handicapping, but I think I can do more. Even though I don't think I have the time for it, I want to try to do more. And so that's where the Sia Nejad sports and the Twitter spaces. By the way, Sia Nejad sports is my channel on YouTube. I know this is a channel on YouTube too. Please come and subscribe to it. We've had a lot of incredible guests, as you'll see on there. But yeah, I keep trying to chase doing more. And Phil, the bottom line for me is I'm trying to have impact on people. I'm trying to like put smiles on faces. It sounds so silly and so cliche and so like contrived, but that's genuinely my mission. And so that's why I don't want to just be thought of as a lawyer or a sports handicapper or a sports media host. I want to be way more than that. And I think we all should try to. I know we don't have the schedule to necessarily do it, but I think we should all try to do that.
but it's the positive way you go about it and using your platform. I do this show every single day, 90 minutes a day, and we talk all different topics on this show. But something that constantly comes up on this show, and I'm sure it's in every city, not just in Philadelphia, the negativity from the main media. They all have these huge platforms. I've got a smaller platform here. Mm-hmm. But these major sites and these major names, and locally and nationally, big platforms, and they use it to spread negativity. And you've built a very large platform. I mean, you've worked with, countless different groups. Win Daily Sports. You're on Sirius XM. You've worked with Jonathan Coachman. You got to see that you've interviewed. You've taken your platform that you've built from your gambling and also used it to try to spread positivity, to try to spread helping people. And I feel like people are afraid to use their platforms for good. But yet, I wish more people would do what you're doing. And yeah, you can have your sports takes, but then also use your platform to help people.
So, Phil, the problem is the stuff that gets the clicks and the stuff that gets the attention. Mm-hmm. And K1, I'm not gonna fully disagree with you. I mean, listen, Ed Reed, Brian Dawkins, Sean Taylor, if that's the order you want to put it, I'm not going to disagree with that. Oh, I am going to disagree with it, but I'm not going to take issue with it because I think that's a lot of people probably have that order. But the problem, back to my answer, I love the interaction. The Sean Taylor, I want to bring up Sean Taylor every moment I can. Go back on YouTube and watch some of his stuff. It's really, I know it was a small sample size, obviously. It's really unbelievable stuff, both at Miami and at Washington. But the stuff that gets the clicks is the negative stuff. And so that's the problem. So here's what I found. When I started doing the Sia Nejad Sports, I have some subscribers. I'm not even at 1,000 yet, and I haven't been doing as many interviews just in the last, month or so. But the point is, I should probably have more subscribers there for that motivational and whatever you want to call it, mental health oriented subject matter. I have a Discord space that there's a handful of people in. It's a free Discord that people can join. It's really more about it's all about positivity and goal setting and just supporting each other and things like that. I do a Twitter Spaces every other Thursday, and the reason I'm advertising all that isn't to say, hey, look at me, this is what I do. It's that those things, and I'm not mad about it. I'm just pointing something out. Those things get about 5 to 10% of the attention as the typical sports media stuff that you and I, Phil, do, or the sports handicapping stuff that I do. When I have a winner in golf or Major League Baseball first five or NFL prop, and I put it on Twitter and I put the check mark next to it, I might get 80 to 150 likes and some quote tweets and retweets. When I put something about motivation or positivity or something like that, it might get 12 or 20. And again, I'm not mad about it. I'm just pointing out, what are we responding to? And so the frustration when we do some of this content that is not sports oriented, that is not negative, the stuff that's getting the clicks, the frustration is that's not getting as much attention. But the reality is, the impact that's having on the few people that are actually paying attention to it is so much more important than the impact the other stuff is having on the 100 or 200 people that are responding to your, whether it be negative or sports handicapping stuff, whatever the case may be. So we can't look at it from a global, well, this is getting this many likes and this is getting this many likes, because the fewer likes on this side might be having way more impact to the individual than the likes you're having on the other side of it.
Yeah, I mean, and this is not to prop up what I do here either when I say this, but it's I've constantly had people tell me privately and in the comments of the show that, I've been doing this show for about 2.5, almost 3 years now, every single day. And it's well, if you would just start your show off saying something like, Jalen Hurts is the worst quarterback in the world, the Eagles should cut him right now, then all of a sudden those clicks and those likes, and it would all blow up, you know what I mean, and get bigger. I'm my goal has always been, and you are part of, and again, not to prop you up as a guest here, you and a couple others are part of the reasons why I keep it, I guess using the word positive, that power of positivity, or at least very respectable. You don't necessarily have to take the negative approach as long as you're helping 20 people see the positive in things versus 200 seeing the negative in things.
Right.
I don't understand how these people that use negativity to promote themselves look at themselves in the mirror and say they're happy with themselves when they're doing that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we all trick ourselves into defining what success is. And so if our definition of success is number, and listen, I'm looking for followers too. I'm looking for all those things that those people are looking for too. But if your definition of success is how much money you make, how many followers you have, those types of parameters, then it's very easy to immerse yourself in the negativity because you're going to get the responses to those things. You're going to get that type of feedback. You're going to get the following. But I mean, the question becomes long-term, are you happy with that? And some people might be. For me, and here's the thing, Phil, like I think you can, first of all, compliments to you doing an hour and a half from 8 to 9:30. First of all, I love your background. I love the studio feel, your mic, like everything is very professional with what you do. I'm serious, like, because a lot of people don't have that. A lot of people don't build out the studio behind them. They don't have the great mic or whatever the case may be. And those little things are really important. So I commend you for doing that every single day, the hour and a half. But it's okay to immerse yourself in negativity sometimes. I don't want to pretend that I don't say negative stuff or I don't criticize people. I'm sure you do as well. But that can't be the theme of everything that you do. And if it is, you're probably doing it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit. I mean, obviously you've had some great interviews, and I want to get to those interviews in a minute. But you've started doing these every other week spaces, and I was really busy last night, and then I ended up, watching the NBA Finals a little bit last night. So I haven't caught last night's replay of the spaces last night. But you've kind of gravitated to doing these every other Thursday night spaces. You had a great guest last night. I'm sure talked some great stuff. Then you open it up to the people to talk and ask questions. What gave you the idea to start these Twitter spaces or X spaces, whatever they're called now? And what could my listeners here, if they want to find you on Twitter at Sia Nejad, what can they expect during these? They're about an hour and change long spaces that you host.
It started from my Sia Nejad sports stuff. Again, that's my channel on YouTube, which I probably started a year and a half ago. It's relatively new. And I know somebody mentioned Coach on here. Coach was one of my first guests on the show. I've had Daniel Negreanu.
No, not to cut you off. Yeah. Out of all the interviews you've done, and I've watched almost every single one of them, that episode that you had on the Sia Nejad Sports Network with the Coach literally changed my perception of what I am doing right now.
Wow.
And the fact that I'm trying to push it further and push it harder in my life and all. And I just want to, I know I've tweeted, or I've private messaged that, but publicly, if anybody needs motivation, just go watch that Coach interview that you had.
Yeah.
I mean, it was very, very impactful on me.
And he's a very impactful person with his words, and he means it. And I like to think all the guests that I've had on do in a certain way, but Coach does it certainly in a different way, where it really is super impactful. But yeah, I've had, like you said, Coach Daniel Negreanu, David Meltzer, who some of you might know, entrepreneur, former NFL agent, motivational speaker. I had Kylan Young on. If you watch Big Brother or The Challenge, Kylan Young was my last guest. I've had, and I'm leaving out, Rick Gaiman, Pat Mayo have been on that show. So the Twitter Spaces kind of started from that, where I realized that I wanted to do more of this stuff where I'm bringing out things from other people that are completely outside the sports handicapping space. I mean, honestly, the Sia Nejad Sports name on YouTube, I'll probably have to change it one day because it's a little misleading, because it's not a sports show at all. It just happens to be mostly with sports oriented personalities. But the Twitter Spaces thing, listen, I just wanted a platform for people to talk. That's all it is. If you notice, every other Thursday, the last two, we've had a guest to kind of kick off the show, but usually it's just, we start the space at 8:00. I say some preliminary words, and then we'll have people kind of trickle in. Maybe it might only be 10 people, it might be 15, it might be 25, whatever it is. And then we'll just start talking, and people will ask me questions about something they want to know about, not about me, but about what my response is to something that's going on in their life. Or they might want to come up and update on, because they've been a part of every single space, they might want to update the group on, hey, this is my progress since, for example, yesterday after David Bileski spoke, and he talked about addiction and alcoholism, and it was kind of in the wake of the Grayson Murray death, and he's a recovering alcoholic. He had a lot to say about people's perspective on alcoholics and how it might be different than you think. And by the way, that is pinned to my Twitter. So if you want to go back and listen to the first 20 minutes, and you'll hear pretty much all of what David Bileski has to say. But we usually start it like that, and we just open the floor to people to speak their mind. Like yesterday, we had this guy Moshe come on, who's a follower of mine, and he said, "Hey, ever since we started this, I've lost 30 pounds. I've gotten on a regimen where I run and I'm writing my goals down and like all these things that like we preach on these Twitter spaces, he's actually actively putting them into play. And like, that's why I'm doing it. I'm doing it so that people like him can come up and be like, what should I do? And then 6, 8, 10, 14 weeks later say, hey, I did that thing. Check this out. So that's what it's for. It's an open forum. It's very informal. Anybody can speak. Literally, if you request to speak, I'm going to bring you up. You're going to speak. You can make a comment. You can ask a question. You can give advice. You can do whatever you want every other Thursday at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, and you mentioned you do a lot to inspire and motivate, but you also do, and you mentioned Grayson Murray there, and we talked about that on this show and on my golf show when it happened. You do spend time and plenty of time using your platform to bring awareness to mental health issues out there as well. And it's something that I talk about, unfortunately, far too often on this show is athletes and their mental health spaces. I mean, we always talk about athletes in this way or that way. They're a bust or they're not, or they stink or they don't stink. But then you see the things like Grayson Murray when that happens. And then you see how other athletes are treated by fans and media. We kind of forget that athletes and celebrities are human beings as well. And they're struggling just as much as you and I are in these kind of scenarios, and maybe the criticism from the fans, but just in life in general.
So, you know what's so interesting about that, Phil, is people will look at that comment you just made and they'll be like, no, they're not struggling as much. They're not struggling as much as I. Like they're a millionaire. They've been catered to their whole lives. And the reality is that response to what Phil just said is actually the reason not only that they're suffering potentially as much, but sometimes suffering more. I'll give you a really good example, Phil. And I think people really need to capture this and start putting themselves in other people's shoes for a second. I know we think we do that, but let's stop and think about an athlete. Let's say an athlete that didn't make it to the NBA. I've lived with some athletes back in my days living in Richmond, Virginia. I lived with a couple of basketball players who were very, very good college basketball players who ended up getting injured and just kind of like fell off the map, most college athletes do, and then having to deal with the reality of getting a normal job, applying for a job, getting rejected from a job, not being qualified for a job, all of those things. And the thing about that rejection that's so interesting is that those people have never been rejected in their entire lives. In fact, they've been catered to their entire lives. They've been told they are the man or the woman, if it's a female, like whatever the case may be, they have been absolutely catered to. They've been heroes in their hometowns. They've been heroes in their high school. They've been the captain of the football team or whatever it is, the leader at the pep rally. They go to college. They're continuing to be catered to. They have these NBA aspirations, and then all of a sudden it's gone. And so imagine that cliff. Imagine falling from that cliff and applying for a job that you don't want, that you never thought you would need. And maybe you even get the job and you're like, oh, this is my life now. Imagine the perspective of that person who has these unbelievably high goals that seem very, very achievable. And then all of a sudden being put on the same platform as, I hate to reduce it to like, Phil, like you and me, but it's true. Like we're not athletes at this point in our lives, and nor were we ever college athletes. I don't know, maybe you were, but I wasn't a college basketball player or anything. So the point is like that fall from grace, that fall from getting all the attention to getting no attention and just being another regular person. I know some people are like, oh, woe is me. You were still great for all of those years. But what you have to appreciate is that fall. And even an NBA player who doesn't make it, like who maybe got a few million and then just kind of falls out of the league or is getting all this criticism, you are assuming they know how to handle this criticism, but they don't, because they've never had to handle it before. So we have to appreciate that. That doesn't mean there's not fault in a guy like Kevin Durant, who sometimes doesn't handle the criticism right his entire career. Like we can still criticize that person, but we also have to appreciate where they're coming from. And it's from a place where they've never had to deal with it before, and now they do.
I mean, obviously, with the Grayson Murray had the tragic end, obviously, to all his struggles. But do you think leagues? Because like this came up recently this week because we were talking Sixers and all the mistakes they made throughout the last 10 years with their team. And Michael Carter-Williams, he was a former Rookie of the Year for the Sixers, and he really struggled in his career living up to the hype. And he did. I don't know if it was the Player Tribune or on The Athletic. There was a big feature, self-written story that he did, to kind of get off his chest some of his mental struggle issues. And you see Grayson Murray not being able to handle it. You see, if you read the Michael Carter-Williams article, you see that it took him till he went to his fourth or fifth team. I think it was the Charlotte Hornets. So they actually had people in their building to help players with struggles. Do you think leagues or teams need to do more? You got to think about it, especially with basketball. You got 18-year-old kids becoming professional athletes, lots of money, lots of fame. Maybe the leagues have to step in or the teams have to step in and have more help on staff to help these people with these struggles.
It's an interesting question. I know leagues do that to a degree, but I don't know the degree to which they do it. For example, I know in the NFL, when rookies come in, there's typically a program that they have to go through. I might be overstating this. I think it's all rookies that have to go through some sort of, it's not a program.
It's called the Rookie Symposium. It's like a 3-day event, but they talk about the playbook, like the rules of like gambling. They talk about money management. It's like a lot of information. It's like a 3-day college course, basically. Yeah. So it's not focused just on the potential struggles they might face, mentally speaking.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that, because I wasn't sure. I just remember vaguely hearing about that.
We talk about it all the time because of the gambling aspect of players getting in trouble, that it can't be a 1-hour conversation anymore at the Rookie Symposium. It needs to be a bigger, lesson that's being taught to these kids. So we talk about that symposium a lot on this show.
Yeah, and I think they do. I think they do need to do more, because I think the real problem, and this is something David Bileski spoke to on the Twitter Spaces yesterday. He was so eloquent in speaking to it, by the way, is that like we sort of have this sense about what these falls are. Like when anybody takes a fall, whether it's in the mental health realm or otherwise, like it's seen as like not masculine. It's seen as like a weak thing. And really, the weak thing is not addressing it, right? The strength, when you address a problem that you clearly have, and you like really truly address it, you're introspective, you internally think, and you're like, all right, I need to, like, there's strength in doing that. The weak thing is actually not even being introspective. The weak thing is not looking inside and figuring out what the problem might be and how to maybe address it. So yeah, I do think the leagues can do more, because honestly, let's be honest, across all of these sports, whether it's baseball, football, basketball, or I mean, even hockey, name the sport, like these are kids coming in and they don't really have necessarily the life skills that they need. Frankly, non-athletes don't have the life skills they need when they graduate college. So I don't know why we would think athletes would, considering what their trajectory is, just constantly being involved in sports. So yeah, I think the leagues absolutely, if they implement these programs, or if the teams implement these programs, then the stigma of whatever these mental health issues are, it'll weaken, because it's now being acknowledged globally that, hey, like these are issues you need to address. We need to address with you. If you make it mandatory to some degree, then they realize, oh, this is a part of the fabric of my life. This isn't just something that people deal with that have quote, air quote, issues.
Yeah, because, regular average Joe schmoes like me, we struggle with these same issues. I don't talk about my issues publicly. I'm still not at the point of feeling comfortable addressing some of the things I deal with. But if the pros or the famous people, and it's actors and musicians, it's not just athletes, if they learn to handle and talk publicly about it, maybe it'll break down some barriers that some regular people feel embarrassed about talking about their struggles, and then maybe you'll see less people losing their battle with those mental health things.
Right. I think people don't even know like where to go if they have struggles. I mean, I think that's part of the reason I do these Twitter Spaces and I have this free Discord, is so that there is a platform. Like somebody said yesterday, this was so cool about, like, again, my Discord, it's not a big thing, it's probably got, it's probably got 30 to 35 people in it at this point, and it'll continue to go. I don't advertise it a ton. If you want to be a part of it, let me know, message me. I'll send you the link. It's also attached to the Twitter Space yesterday, but somebody said something really cool to me yesterday on the Twitter Space. It was Moshe, the guy who lost 30 pounds. He said, we were talking about how there's just kind of a lot of negativity everywhere. And he said, what I love about this Discord, which we call Motivate Better Together, MBT, he said, what I love about it is I'm preconditioned, I'm pre-programmed to come in there with a positive attitude. And it was like, it's like a subconscious thing for him, which I absolutely love, because we see this negativity. We see if we admit to being weak in a certain area on whatever platform it is, let's call it Twitter, like we're going to be seen a certain way. But if you have a place where you can talk about stuff like that and not be judged and not be considered weak, then it's just going to be like a much safer space. So I think we need to create that just in our conversation, so that if somebody does come out on Twitter and say it, now he or she can be embraced, instead of be potentially kind of looked down upon or criticized.
You know, we've got about 5 more minutes left here. Again, we're talking to Sia Nejad of the Sia Nejad Sports Network. Make sure you guys find them everywhere. Obviously I got 5 minutes. I gotta talk. I gotta ask you the movie questions and stuff. But K1's saying compulsive gambling is a disease as well, but we encourage it endlessly. It's weird. What are your, I mean, you do a lot, like your start in these spaces were in the gambling field. Obviously, we constantly see athletes struggling to stay away from it and constantly getting in trouble. Thoughts on K1's comment there, and just in general, you know, whenever there's another athlete that gets suspended, we always talk about, and I've always got people commenting that these leagues are getting in bed advertising wise. So what do they expect? Thoughts on that comment, but just in general, the theory of gambling and where it's, you know, headed right now.
Yeah, I mean, that comment is more global, because obviously he's also referring to, you know, anybody who gambles. Absolutely. I assume that's what he's referring to.
Yes.
And here's the thing. It's all about how we frame it. Here, you know, when it comes to advertising on gambling, there's a lot of it. But FYI, and I'm not defending the gambling, the sports books, but FYI, I don't think anybody's selling you the idea of, hey, gamble on this game or do this, like we've got this promotion for this 50% boost parlay. This is going to be your income instead of this 9-to-5 job that you have. If that's your attitude, if your attitude is, this is going to be my income, or this is going to be a big supplement to my 9-to-5 or whatever my occupation is, well, then you're doing it wrong. So I think we need to frame this properly. Again, I don't think DraftKings or FanDuel is coming out being like, drop your job, check out these 3-leg parlays, because now you're gonna have more time on your hands than anything, because all you have to do is sports bet. I think we need to kind of be grounded and understand, like, sports betting is mostly for fun. Even for me, who's been doing it for many years, like, it's largely for fun. I might have a bet that I love like a few times a year, and I put like maybe a little bit too much money on it than I should. But even then, we're not talking thousands of dollars here. I mean, it's very often that my bets are $30 or $40 or $40, and honestly, there's a lot of people that have $10 or $20 bets. And so I think the long and short of it, we need to frame what gambling actually is. It's not a supplement to our income. It's not our exclusive income. It's an activity that's fun, that for me prevents me on a Saturday night during college football season or any season going out to a bar and spending, you know, $60 on a round of drinks for my friends and myself and maybe an appetizer. Instead, I'm going to spend $30 on Oregon against Washington, you know, minus, you know, 3.5. So, I mean, that's sort of how I look at gambling, an absolute fun activity with like pizza money largely. But if we look at it in any other way, that's when that compulsivity, that impulsivity becomes very dangerous. And we got to get out of that frame of mind.
I mean, and that's exactly where I'm at. You know, obviously we have Fairway to Heaven every Tuesday night. We talk gambling on golf and stuff like that, Jason and I. And you know, I don't even bet that big. And I was a big gambler when I was back before it was legal. You know, I had a bookie and whatnot. Yep. And it got out of hand. Yeah. You know, and you know, young, stupid me, you know, didn't know how to control it, but it took really hard work. And before we wrap this up, you're always talking about, I forget which interview it was, but you talked about betting on oneself and setting goals. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what I've always done. I've just never pushed forward on it. And the gambling aspect of it, when I bet a golfer outright, I'm betting $2, $3. Yeah. When I'm betting on a football and Eagles game, I'm betting $5. Mm-hmm. It's more for the fun, you know what I mean? And the entertainment, like you say, but there still is a problem with it. So, you know, there just needs to be more, just like we talked about, more teaching about mental health. There's just got to be more teaching and more, I don't know what the right word is, explaining to people how you just explained it as a fun thing to do versus a get-rich-quick scheme.
You should be gambling for the fun of the activity, not for the potential supplemental income it might provide.
Okay. All right. So we normally have one question that we end every interview with, and it's Goodfellas versus Godfather. But about 30 minutes before you joined, someone threw an extra movie thing in. So I got 2 movie questions for you, because the first one, the new one, I have no idea how to answer it. And somebody said, ask about Kill Bill versus Pulp Fiction. And then obviously you got to answer the Goodfellas Godfather question, which is the question every guest has to get.
I'm going to be the first guest that your audience is going to hate on the second question. So I'll answer that first. I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. I've never seen The Godfather. I'm just, for whatever, I'm sorry. I don't know why. I'm just not into it. Maybe I should be. I've seen Goodfellas, so I have to by default take Goodfellas over Godfather because at least I took the time to watch Goodfellas. I'm really sorry about that answer, but I have a better answer for you, Phil, and audience, on this other one. Kill Bill versus Pulp Fiction. It's not close.
Okay.
Phil, everyone out there, K1, Eric, Adam, there was somebody who gave me a really nice compliment. I want Steve Fuentes gave me a really nice compliment. Thank you for that.
This is the comments that you're seeing right now. I call it the core 12. It's the 20 or 30 people that tune in every single day religiously. They're always helping me out. Just call the core 12. They're the core 12.
Core 12, Brad included. It's Pulp Fiction, and it's not close. Okay. Pulp Fiction over Kill Bill.
Because I'm still stunned or stuck on it because I love Kill Bill. But I think in my mind, either Pulp Fiction is one of the greatest things ever made, or is it, then I think to myself, is it the most overrated thing ever made? And I'm not sure which one it is. And I really struggle with that because I've seen Pulp Fiction 100 times. I've only seen Kill Bill like 4 or 5 times. And every time I watch Pulp Fiction, I walk away loving it or completely hating it every single time.
I think when you think to like what Tarantino was doing, I mean, did he write the screenplay? I know he directed. He probably didn't write I know, Godfather. I'm sorry, K1. I think the script is so unique and the acting is so unique that it just, to me, it just kind of stands alone.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. All right, Sia, we got Sia Nejad Sports Network. I'm going to message you after the show because I was trying to share your Discord link in the description of this. I'll get the link from you after the show and I'll put it in next week's show. Anybody that wants to follow him on Discord, it'll be in next week's show's links once I get it. What do you got coming up over the next week or two? Any special guests that you've got lined up, your next spaces or your next interview on the channel? Give me some of that information for everybody.
I'm glad you're asking because I don't have a Sia Nejad sports interview lined up yet, but I'm gonna have one. This is actually kind of inspiring me to like get a handle on that and get a good guest coming up. Twitter Space won't be this coming Thursday; it'll be the next Thursday. No guest for that yet, but I'll probably have somebody lined up. But honestly, it's all the people in the Twitter Space that are truly the quote guests. So I'm not necessarily stuck on having a guest each time there. Other stuff, listen, Phil, the U.S. Open's coming up. I got something exciting coming up. I have a show on TV for Monumental Sports Network every Monday through Friday. It's regional. It's D.C., Maryland, Virginia area. But I'm also going to be on CBS Sports Network, that cable channel, on Tuesday for the Early Edge, which we normally do on the SportsLine YouTube channel, which I do in about 28 minutes every Monday through Friday. But I'm going to be on CBS Sports Network this coming Tuesday at 2 o'clock. We'll be talking a lot of U.S. Open, NBA playoffs, NHL. So truth is, if you want to find what I'm doing, I kind of always retweet it, like when I'm on a show. So you follow me at Sia Nejad, you'll see everything that I'm doing.
Absolutely. I appreciate your time. I appreciate it. Keep up the good work. Can't wait to see your thoughts and predictions on the U.S. Open. I still have no idea where I'm going. I'm still trying to get over round 1 of the Memorial from yesterday. So we'll get to that when we get to it. But thank you very much for your time. Keep up the great work. And guys, I can't stress enough to find this guy, follow him, and just listen to what he and his guests have to say. See ya. Have a great weekend. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Phil. Appreciate being here.